Say hello to travelersan. Through the creative use of game mechanics, and at times glitches, we're on a quest to see just how much of Genshin Impact can be completed using only the Traveler. And we sometimes break things. If you enjoyed the series, do make sure to like and subscribe. It helps travelersan out a lot. This is the home stretch. With Kazuha's and Shinyan's mirages behind us, just 2 story segments are left on this journey, and 8 combat challenges, and overworld puzzles, and collecting the remaining conches, and 2 particular world quests. Suddenly, just is the wrong word to use. Starting with fischl's domain, there isn't much standing in the way of travelersan. Well, other than some unfortunate run-ins with cutscene triggers.
Oh, thank goodness. Huh? What are you guys doing here?
Like Kazuha's domain, fischl's castle required a lot of fighting, though some enemies opted to remove themselves from travelersan's path. Also, they have this wind current here. It makes me wonder why anyone would ever go through the puzzle normally when you can just do this. All 3 of these domains are easily completed using only the Traveler, as are their treasures gathered, exempting, of course, the parts where the game forces the player to use 4 trial characters. There's nothing I can do about this, so let's run through it and file it under the exemption rule. Then we have Mona's domain, again full of spots where the player is forced to use a specific character. However, this one has puzzles. Most are completable with any character, meaning there's again no real obstacle here, except for 2, the torch puzzle and the elemental monument puzzle. I had thought both of these would be tricky. That's because in order to move from room to room, these hydro ambers need to be popped that then flood the area. One of the monuments that needs to be hit is Pyro. It's easy to see how there might be a problem. I thought, okay, let's go out of bounds to avoid hitting the hydro amber, because there's a real easy way to do so right next to the door between the room with the looping treasure chests and the room with the monuments. But then I was worried of getting stuck by accidentally activating the door of resurrection. Not being able to backtrack to hit this hydro amber means I'd be trapped, since doing so is required to reveal the reflections that make the rocks disappear. So I scrapped that idea and just hit it. Each hydro amber thankfully only fills the room it's in with water. The same is true after hitting the hydro monument to reveal the next door's reflection, leading to the torches. And said room with the torches is the one we don't want to flood. Won't be breaking those rocks yet. Let's quickly backtrack and hit these with Animo, grab Pyro from the torch,
disappear!
I gotta love that elemental infusion cannot be overwritten. With the torch room still not flooded, this puzzle is simple. Although, I'm pretty sure it's only supposed to be these 3 that are lit. I guess there may have been a few frames of delay in Whirl activating the 4th torch? Anyways, we can break that wall now, and backtrack to grab this chest that was underwater. You know, gotta wonder where all that water went. Certainly nowhere near this amount flooded into the torch room. Well, that's easy enough. Do we think they considered this? Maybe next time they'll lock out skill usage.
But since mortals couldn't see it, they believed it to be a trick. How could a transparent bird possibly exist, let alone sing? When the bird heard that, it flapped its wings and flew across mountains and seas all the way to the night sky, where it turned into a star.
The domains and all their treasures are now out of the way. Since we just spent time on puzzles, let's shake things up with combat challenges. There are 8 of them in total, and since they're tied to the character domains, we may as well complete them in that order. Kazuha's is actually the easiest of the bunch. The special skill usable here, Flowing Leaf Slasher, scales with world level, giving travelersan access to a devastating attack. This is key to completing the challenge, and there's more than enough time to do so even if waiting 15-second intervals for it to recharge. But things didn't quite go all that smoothly at first, and losing means starting from the very beginning. It took a few tries, but eventually the Ruin Graders, and even the almighty Primogeo Bishop, fell to travelersan. Twice, because there are two versions of each challenge. The second challenge is a repeat of the final room with minor enemy changes, which is true for the second challenges of all the domains. Like Kazuha's, Shinyan's first challenge is a series of battles. A loss means starting over, and boy oh boy did I have to start over a lot here. This here was my favorite loss. I realize that's a strange thing to say, but I actually had a good laugh over this particular fail.
This is not...
On the flip side, this loss was incredibly frustrating, getting stuck on the instrument and comboed out by the Ruin Guard's spinning attack. Starfell Sword came in clutch for this battle. Those missiles would have been much more of a pain to deal with otherwise. It's not too difficult to be far enough away that they lose their lock-on effect, but that narrows the already short window between their attacks that I have to go on the offensive. Gotta stay as aggressive as possible given the timers of these challenges. For fischls, it looked like Animo would be the element of choice. There were a lot of opportunities to swirl, and the tornado in particular comboed insanely well with the electric pulse power-up. Look at this beautiful chaos. And indeed, I did manage to complete the first challenge with Animo. The second had to go Geo. Not sure if I just lost my touch with this challenge, but I struggled with Animo. Geo made things much easier, likely because it takes less commitment to use the skill, and that said skill can block projectiles. I want to take a moment to call out something rather annoying. It's the fact that these Abyss Mages can sometimes teleport when stunned, and upon doing so, the player character takes damage. There's no warning it's about to happen, just gotta evade the moment they vanish, which, when they're hidden behind attack effects, is quite difficult. Those who watched me live stream part of this know that I stated Mona's domain would probably be the easiest, and then I continuously lost after realizing success would be entirely based on luck. Yep, this one still has patterns to take note of and to plan around, but the key to success isn't guaranteed to show up. Although this is entirely my fault, because if I just leveled up travelersan, this would likely be super easy. But I've come this far without doing so. Let's see it through to the end. Specifically in the second challenge, Collapsing Star, that's the power-up that just lets you touch enemies and they get instantly defeated, needs to show up multiple times, during the correct waves, and then be used to its fullest without error. Which means manipulating enemy placement, using stamina carefully, and really believing in the heart of the stars. And anyone who has used the wish system in this game knows those stars don't actually have hearts, and instead continuously stomp on the dreams of players everywhere. But after many, many tries, that's a wrap on all 8 challenges. Quickly grind out the last 800 iridescent flotsam from Kazuha's second challenge. Let me tell you, I was on point by now. Did most of these domain challenges in one sitting, and when it came time to gather these last 800, managed to do so without healing once. Bit of a close call, but I can confidently say that I've got Evasion of Ruin Graders and the Prima Geovishap down to a T. Now we have everything to invite fischl. Brilliant. And also the last of the conches for her outfit. Alrighty, let's just close that menu and carry on, yeah? Travelersan doesn't need to be sending invitations out to anyone. We're down to world quests and puzzles. Mona's whole island is full of trickery. Of the 4, it's the most difficult. There is no shortage of ruins torches, of elemental monuments comprising everything but Electro and Geo, and timed puzzles, which tend to be one of the biggest problems for Traveler only. Luckily, there's also no shortage of enemies that'll give us the elements we need. Carrying Pyro has been a very common occurrence in this journey. There was even an entire episode on it, and here Travelersan finds himself doing it again.
Windblade.
Oops.
Windblade.
Nice. There really are a lot of these, aren't there? To be exact, there are 7 puzzles involving ruins torches, and this one has a timer. Let's take a look at all the variables in play. This room's puzzle has a 20-second timer. The moment something has changed in the room, whether that's breaking a stone wall or activating a torch, the timer begins. When 20 seconds are up, everything resets. In order to self-swirl with Palm Vortex, the charged version must be used, which causes an 8-second cooldown. That means 2 uses max. The tornado bursts can also be used. There are 3 bushes in this room that can be burned to reset Pyro. As to where to get Pyro, it could be carried in from outside or gotten from the Pyro Hilichurl Grenadier above this room. Additionally, I could open the gate and knock the Hilichurl down here, giving myself a permanent Pyro source and also an enemy to get Sacrificial Sword's effect to activate on. That'd be 3 Palm Vortexes, plus the tornado, and that's 1 for each torch. However, the auto-targeting system may be an issue with an enemy nearby. With all that data gathered, here's the solution I came up with. First, let the Grenadier hit me through the gate. Once knocked down, set this bush on fire and then let the tornado rip. This spot is far enough away from the torches to prevent auto-targeting, so the tornado should move straight from the direction Travelersan was facing and hit both torches. Next, run behind the rubble and Palm Vortex the torch from this angle. It's important to have this angle because a bush atop the root here will also be lit, allowing Pyro to again be reset. Finally, climb over the rubble and Palm Vortex the last ruins torch. That's a plan, one that very nicely went off without a hitch. Okay, I don't have the keys for the door here, but so kind of them to invite me in by leaving a huge hole near the top. Honestly, thought this was the intended way when I first did this on my main account, and it warmed my heart. But then I noticed you couldn't climb in without using Starfell's sword. There's still more to do in this ruin, but since the world quest that takes place isn't active, we'll come back later. For now, it's onto the elemental monuments. Actually, I definitely tried to skip this puzzle by gliding over to the luxurious chest from this floating platform, just short of the height needed. Had I access to the red feather fan, I wonder if it'd been enough. Pyro, Anemo, Cryo, Hydro. That's the order they need to be hit in, which may beg some questions. How will we hit the Cryo monument, or the Hydro one? They're good questions, because unlike Pyro, these 2 elements cannot be refreshed. There's only the initial application timer to work with, which isn't much time at all. For Pyro, we need to make friends with a new Pyro slime buddy. And don't worry, Travelersan won't brutally murder his pal again. I mean, why would he? There's nothing to gain from it this time around. You'll notice we have another good friend who will be granting us Cryo. That's Pyro, and that's Anemo. Come on, hit me. Gimme Cryo. Wow, this Cryo slime is rather chill. Barely attacks. Meanwhile, the other is a hyper-aggressive hothead. Okay, got Cryo. That the status effect slows down movement only further complicates carrying it. I messed this up quite a few times, but eventually managed to make the jump thanks to using stamina recovery food. All that's left is Hydro. Now, there's an interesting thing about this one. While testing possible solutions, I discovered that the Hydro Monument in the original version of the island can be activated to make it rain, and that said rain carries over to the Mirage. One might think that this makes this simple, and indeed, I thought just that, until I noticed that the wet effect from rain is its own independent status, which gets immediately cleansed the moment you're no longer in the rain. Look at that. I barely step beneath this cavern ceiling and boom, dry as a desert. And the monument we need to hit? Bingo, just barely below the ceiling. So if the rain doesn't work, how on earth are we supposed to hit this one? The sea is obviously too far away, as is the bit of water near the Anemo monument. But what isn't too far away is this super convenient scrying pool. I'm rather enjoying coming up with all these neat solutions, although don't let this clean clip fool you. It took a few tries. What didn't, however, is the elemental monument puzzle that's part of the Fatui quest. Rather simple, that one. All the elements are available nearby via enemies and the environment. Okay, pardon me for a moment while I take a deep breath. The final obstacle for travelersan also proved to be one of the absolute most annoying things ever. Remember those pyro monuments in Shinyan's domain? The ones that don't reset correctly if you accidentally hit them in the wrong order? I've got a strong suspicion that they copied and pasted that puzzle logic onto the final two sets of ruin torches that need dealt with, which are part of the world quest, thus was the work done in vain. Even remembering this part is giving me a headache. Let's start with the first set in the small room near the elemental monuments. Once one enters the room, the door shuts behind them. Since there's no source of pyro in here, I don't know why these candles don't work, and no bushes or grass within to reset pyro, that's a huge problem. Although, the gate can actually be opened super easily by just walking into this tight space between the walls, except that doesn't count as solving the puzzle, and the quest doesn't progress. Additionally, doing this breaks the puzzle. After an hour of testing, I concluded this puzzle works based on the following logic. 1. To complete the puzzle, the door must be triggered. 2. Mapping out or using the aforementioned trick to make the door open makes it so the door will no longer close, rendering it incompletable. Logging out and back in resets this, as well as any lit torches. 3. Only the final torch being lit must satisfy the door condition. The solution then? Throw a tornado into there and light the first two, and oh, that's blocking the torch. Tornado won't work for the second. No worries, with the tornado and palm vortex, that's 2 instances of pyro for 2 torches. Real easy.
Disappear!
What? Oh my gosh, why is the hitbox so precise?
Disappear! With the wind!
It only took me about 5 tries. Finally, got this one solved, to only then be thrown right into another. This room is another headache. All the logic talked about with the previous applies here, as does the fact that the puzzle seems to always fail the first time, no matter what. You can see here that I'm lighting them in the correct order, but upon hitting the third, failure. It's the same strategy from last time, and we need help from our earlier friend, the Pyrohelitril Grenadier. We need to take this guy for a little walk, which means travelersan needs to ditch his attack boosting gear. Don't want an accidental KO. Sacrificial Sword will also speed up burst regen. This is the spot. If you're wondering why I didn't instead use this bush to reset pyro, I didn't want to go through the trouble of leaving repeatedly to wait for it to respawn. Okay, there's the pyro status. Why am I hitting them in the wrong order? Remember that the puzzle is guaranteed to fail the first time once the third torch is lit. Since the last torch lit when it fails stays lit, we need to make sure that the first one in the correct order is the third one we hit. Okay, so it didn't stay lit this time. Should be fine, right? Okay, the first torch is lit, and the second. And for the final two, gotta bring our pal all the way up to the entrance of the room. Whew, not gonna lie, these ruin torches and those pyro monuments in Shinyan's domain, some weird logic behind their design, enough that it may even be a bit jarring for regular players, should they mess up the puzzle at least once. Well everyone, that was the final obstacle of note. Our summertime journey on the beaches of the archipelago, across its vast blueness, through to the other side of many magnificent mirages, now all comes to a close. This has been the Golden Apple Archipelago, version 2.8, fully completed using only the Traveler. I truly hope everyone not only enjoyed the silly struggles of travelersan, but also the wondrous event. We've only had 2 events in this time-limited region, but I feel a trend is being set, that grand adventures and fond memories await each summer it returns. Definitely already looking forward to the next. Maybe it's because the region is time limited, but I felt a sense of nostalgia when exploring the islands. Thought it a bit strange, given it'd only been a year, but then maybe that's part of the charm. Hey everyone, really thankful for the continued support of the series. If you've yet to subscribe, I'd appreciate it if you consider it. And feel free to follow me on Twitter if you'd like to keep updated with sneak peeks at content and other general stuff I post there. Sumeru is on the horizon, but travelersan still has unfinished business in Mondstadt. Unfinished business named ANDRIUS, and Devalin, and the Electro plus Anima Hypostases, and the Cryo Regisfine. It's time for a boss rush. With the difficulty of the challenges faced on the islands, I think I'm more than ready for it. This is Musashi and travelersan with an asterisk, signing off. Till next time.